It's a pleasure to welcome you back to this evening's second session, which will be delivered by Professor Soumendra Patnaik. Professor Patnaik is a professor and head of the Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. His specialization is in anthropology of development, tribal studies, kinship, globalization studies, anthropological theories, and research methodology. He was a former vice chancellor of Utkal University, Orissa, which is one of the leading universities in the state. Leading universities actually generated a lot of very great persons, very well-known persons across the country. He now heads a commission on policy and governance in the International Union of Anthropological and Ethnological Sciences. He is the convener of Research Committee, Rural, Peasants and Tribal Commission. He is also the director of publication of Ethnographic and Folk Culture Society and the chairperson, Governing Board of Lakshmi Bai College, University of Delhi, and treasurer member governing board of Shahid Rajguru College for Applied Sciences for Women, which is also from the University of Delhi. Professor Patnaik, it's a pleasure to welcome you here today. It's a pleasure to listen to you. And thank you very much for making the time for us this evening.
Thank you, Professor Saikia, for giving me this chance to connect to my younger colleagues. It is always a sought after assignment that we get to talk to each other, and I would like to keep it more dialogical rather than a monologue. Now, my discussion will be divided into 4 parts. Part 1, I will mainly discuss how the university culture is changing. We all know that universities are not the same the way it has been earlier. And how the university values, or the values for which universities stood for, they are also undergoing rapid transformation. And at this juncture of the national history, Indian history, that the national education policy has come up, putting more emphasis on the aspects which are going to be very, very vital in the future. The second part, I would like to discuss about what is the second part, I would like to discuss about what is the nature of an imagined university of future. I mean, what is the expectation of stakeholders, the responsibility of stakeholders is envisaged in the national education policy. What are we imagining for ourselves in future? This is important because while discussing about academic leadership and governance, it is important to know what these specific pathways which the policy expects from the leaders, or what are the roles and responsibilities of the leader as envisaged in the policy. So this is our third part. The first part, how the university culture is changing. Second part, what is being imagined as the university of future, expectation of the stakeholders. And the third part, what are the pathways as enshrined in the new education policy, in the national education policy, regarding the role and responsibility of the leader and the challenges. And the fourth part, I would like to connect it to some of my experiences and some of my strategies, which my experience as a vice chancellor of 2 universities. One was Utkal and the other one was a technology university, Odisha University of Agriculture and Technology, where I was briefly placed for 6 months. Now, to begin with, I would like to ask the first question, that what is a university? Do we have a very shared understanding of university culture, or we are having different opinion on this? For example, I would like to ask, is university a government institution? Is university truly an autonomous institution? Many times you will find there are localized elements, and an university would look as, using Weber's word, patrimonial bureaucracy writ large. So how are we going to distinguish between these important values which stand for the organizational essence or organizational backbone of a university. I would like to define it, not as a whole, but it comprises part of three elements. Like university is to be, how university is a part government, a part corporation, and a part family. For example, it is not totally government, but there are partial values or partial elements, part elements of a government organization. There are also part elements of a corporation, and there are also some elements of a family. And unless the leadership or unless even the teachers and the faculty members understand this, we cannot bring out qualitative change in the universities of future. Because we all know that many of us as a faculty or as a teacher, we are very, very stickler to the rules. And many times we have to also bend it, not under the external pressure, but because of a humanistic concern. And therefore, we know that universities also carry the familial values because children are grown, children are molded, children are mentored like by the faculty members as their second parents or as next to their parents. And they are many times, I remember how the faculty members also go out of their way to support the poor and needy children, not within the four walls of law, but in a form of an extended thing or an extended family. Universities also function as big business houses or corporations. And therefore, I remember when I was in the growing up stage, and I was in my undergraduate college in a Kalikot college in Odisha. Everybody used to take a great sense of pride that no police can enter the campus unless the principal permits. And if the principal permits, then the children would go and ask the principal that, what do you think of us? Do you think of us as criminals, or do you think of us as violator of the rules, perpetrators of the rule, or you take us as your children? So, those were the moral foundations on which universities have been based. And for example, there are, in some of the cases, we know many of the state universities, they function well when the structure of authority is collapsed. That means the statute, university statute, has been taken over by the government, and government appoints an administrator. Now, for an administrator is a bureaucrat, maybe an IAS officer, and an administrator is always eager to show the strength of his power. And we have seen that many of the state universities, they improve their functioning when an administrator comes and suspends 2-3 people, and then things come back to, apparently in the media and other things, they come back to so-called normalcy. The inertia is broken, things are rolled down. But that's not how we want to run the universities. We don't want to create a military structure, or we don't want to create a regimental structure as far as the university systems are concerned. And therefore, we understand that there are familial values, there are government rules, and there are also corporeal or corporation corporational aspirations for an university. And having said this, when we say that the universities are changing and universities are not following, whether we are talking of private universities or public universities, that is besides the point, central universities or state universities, but most of the universities are changing primarily because of the larger ecosystem of higher education institutions. And the new education policy is definitely a welcome addition, a welcome document, a welcome step by the government, where much of the imagination has been put into what should constitute the university of future, like what is the imagined university what are the expectations of the stakeholders, and also the responsibility of the stakeholders. This takes us to our second part. When we talk about this aspect of imagined university or the universities of future, we all know that a core vertical administrative system, regulatory framework, governance mechanisms are in place. And how these mechanisms are different from the existing mechanisms, or what are they planning to instill, we need to pay little attention to that. Now, through these administrative reorganization, the understanding of this is important because the academic leader, the CEO of the university, the vice chancellor or the president of the university is functioning through these or with these administrative regulatory frameworks. Now, as we know, that the main intention of this education policy is to create robust ecosystem of research. And this robust ecosystem of research revolve around high quality interdisciplinary research, which is the need of the nation because the societal condition in terms of water supply, climate change, in terms of disasters, in terms of soil erosion, in terms of the so-called spread of extremism, violence, and in terms of the byproduct of the mining on drinking water, etc., etc. The needs, societal needs, and the societal requirements are different, and therefore high quality interdisciplinary research is the need of the hour. And this high quality interdisciplinary research alone is not going to be sufficient because when we talk about science, science is based on universal principles and universal principles which are applicable for the globe. And science, in addition to having many fruitful and desirable results, one of the way in which science acquires a disconnect is with the local history, the art, the language, the culture, the spiritual accomplishment, and therefore this new education policy tries to connect these two components in a very inextricable and intricate way, that how the language, Indian languages, Indian history and art and spiritual accomplishments at individual and collective level can be connected to this robust ecosystem. And for this, the policy has planned a National Research Foundation, NRF. And in addition to this NRF, there is a central and nodal organization which we call as Higher Education Commission of India, HECI. And this HECI has 4 verticals. And vertical 1 is the National Higher Education Regulatory Council. Creates and outlines all regulatory frameworks. There is an accreditation council, National Accreditation Council. And this accreditation council talks about how to accredit and what are the values, where should the university score more, and in comparison to the other world-class Western universities. And the third component is Higher Education Grants Council, which is responsible or which will be responsible for promoting cutting-edge research by providing fellowship, scholarship, projects, intermediary grants, etc. And overall, there will be a general education council which will specify the qualification of the teachers, the faculty member, the other leaders of the university system. And the essence of the imagined university lie in some of the following values. Number 1, it puts emphasis on interdisciplinarity. And because of this interdisciplinarity, it tries to connect the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics with arts and humanities, connecting it with liberal arts. And as you know, that the new policy, the national policy, is based on Banabhatta's Kadambari, where 64 arts, 64 different types of skills have been prescribed for the for the neophytes in the education system. And this interdisciplinarity is followed with emphasis on Indian languages, Indian aesthetics, Indian culture, with special reference on translation, with special reference on incorporation of the local languages into the curriculum, and thus promotion of Indian language, art, and culture becomes an essential component of this new university culture. And therefore, they have also instituted Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation of Art, interpretation of several museum objects through this institute. In addition to this liberal arts, emphasis on liberal arts, there are also important forums which prescribes education technology for the stakeholders. National Educational Technology Forum is an important forum, is an important administrative structure which is going to talk about the universities of future. And the overall supervisory or advisory board, that is Central Advisory Board of Education, will take care of all these things. Now, why I'm talking about this landscape, this kind of terrain, because when we talk about the academic governance, and academic governance revolves around an adequate coordination among these organs, these administrative structure, and as the head of the institutions, is the vice chancellor, or is the president, or is the CEO of this head of the institution, you need to know the demands, expectations, and the instrumentality of these organizations, of these verticals, of these instruments, or of these boards, to create a culture of excellence within the university setup. So this takes us to the third component, and the third component is how effective governance and leadership talks about specific pathways. Now, how the policymakers are prescribing some kind of responsibility, or what the policymakers are expecting out of these academic leaders. What is the role and responsibility of these leaders as envisioned by the policy? Of course, when you carefully look at the requirement which the policy enshrines, you will find that all these qualities which they expect the leader to have is very, very difficult. It is difficult in the sense, it's just like, looking for people on this earth where nothing is perfect. And in a while, I will come to the qualities which the policy expects the higher education leader to have. Many times it is possible. I don't say that it is absolutely impossible, but it cannot be generalized. It cannot be, because the moment you try to listen to the qualities, you will find how difficult it is. So what is expected from effective governance and leadership? What is expected from effective governance and leadership is that the leadership or academic leadership should be in a position to create the culture of excellence. Now, this culture of excellence and culture of innovation requires a different kind of understanding of merit. And when we say that this culture of excellence, and to create a culture of excellence, it has to transcend the limitation of a clanship, or the limitation of a clannish or a lineage-based appointment structure. That the supervisor students are generally preferred if the supervisor is in the selection committee. I remember, I don't know, the permission of Professor Saike, I may mention that I remember when he took up the Cotton University, he wanted to make sure that the experts, the selector, should declare that there is nobody known to him or nobody under his supervision who is appearing in the committee. And that's a very profound policy to execute, because this is everything is not written down. Every part of the policy is not written down. You have to innovate. You have to create, of course, within the broader structure of the statute. So if a person is is sitting in the selection committee and he is not connected to anybody, his judgment is less likely to be biased. But if the person is connected to one or other in one way or other, then his judgment is likely to be influenced. I'm not saying that the outcome will be wrong or right, because knowing a bright mind who is doing well in the field is natural. I mean, if I belong to anthropology and if I'm there in a selection committee of professors, I should be able to know the best mind. And it's not that I do not know it or I have no connection with it, but here comes a very strong sense of conscience and a very strong sense of being committed to the institutional need. So when we talk about the creation of a culture of excellence and a creation of an atmosphere of innovation in higher education institutions, the institution is having a strong self-governance. And I mean, this is the responsibility of the leader, that a leader should be given the chance of having a very strong self-governance and must be having outstanding merit based on the previous performance, and that has brought him or that has brought her here. Now, those who are, I do not know, there are some faculty members from sociology or anthropology, but we know in sociology there is a concept called sui generis. Sui generis is self-generating system. Now, if the institution is able to create a culture of excellence, the task is achieved to a great extent. Because once a culture of excellence has been created, the culture of excellence will reproduce itself. It will become a sui generis system. Because you will not like that a university chair which you are holding for last 30 years and you have created the culture of excellence as a faculty member, you will not like that atmosphere of that culture of excellence to go down by appointing a mediocre person. So we all know that mediocrity breeds mediocrity, and that has been the major problem of most of the universities at the smaller universities, most of the smaller university, that once the mediocrity has come into existence, it breeds mediocrity, because the mediocre people feel unsafe or they feel threatened in presence of bright junior. But if you are self-assured, if as a leader of the institution, if you are self-assured, if you are convinced, and if you know that there are people who knows more than you, but you know quite a substantial part of your job, then there is no need to feel inferior or to feel threatened. So in such a condition, the policymakers, they are planning to tell us that how this condition of sui generis can be attained in producing a system of excellence. There is a very beautiful clause in the policy. They are trying to do it in terms of a sustained way. Like a plan is envisaged for 15 years. Policy came in 2020. So a plan is envisaged by 2035. What do they expect by 2035? They expect that by 2035, in this coming 15 years, each university or most of the leading universities must perform well in the graded accreditation. They must perform well in the graded accreditation, and they must achieve higher level of graded autonomy. Now there are grade 1 university, grade 2 universities. One is the NAC and the other one NAC A plus, A double plus, and the other one is by the Ministry of Education. So when you have this different level of accreditation and different level of graded autonomy, that if you are a graded university or if you enjoy graded autonomy, you need not seek permission from the UGC to start new courses. So there are autonomy of different kinds, but they are putting it as a precondition, and very rightfully so, that if you have not attained excellence, if the university has not attained excellence, then we bestow autonomy on it, then we will remain at the level of, or at the paradigm of mediocrity, breeding mediocrity. Autonomy is a dangerous weapon in the hands of mediocrity. I'm sorry to say that if autonomy is given to mediocre people, then the future of the higher education institution is in doldrum. And therefore, the policymakers have realized that there is a need. Policymakers have realized that there is a need for bringing these universities, bringing these leading universities to a condition where they are graded well, they have achieved higher accreditation, and they have different they have been able to uplift their standard, and therefore this precondition needs to be fulfilled before they are given. Only when this precondition is ready, such a move for autonomy will be given. And I totally agree with this. But this is a long journey, the long journey of 15 years. Now, what kind of autonomy is given to these leaders or leaders of future? Now, it is envisaged that there will be a board of governors. Many of the universities have syndicate. They have executive council members. They have senate. I don't know how many universities still have senate, but there are different bodies of governance. So it is envisaged that there will be a board of governors. And who are these? Who are the members of these governors? Highly competent and highly qualified people will constitute the board of governors. In addition to being highly competent and highly qualified, these governors are also dedicated individuals. They have proven capabilities of discharging their duty earlier. And more important, these board of governors, they have a strong sense of commitment. And when I will come back to this sense of commitment while discussing the fourth part of my lecture, that how vice chancellors are required to have a high degree of commitment, a strong sense of commitment vis-a-vis other administrators. Now, when you talk about these board of governors so constituted on the basis of competency, qualification, dedication, capability, and commitment. These board of governors, they own up the dignity of the university. They are the in a way they are the spokesperson of them. They are owning up the success and failure of the and wherever they go, they profess or they ensure that universities' interests are further. This board of governors are free from any external influence. How far it is possible, that is something which has to be seen in future. But these board of governors are free, or generally they will be kept free from any external influence. I will also come back to this point while discussing about my experience. Please remind me if at all I forget this, how board of governors are generally, they should not have any external influence. And how the new members of the board of governors will be recruited. The new members for the board of governors will be appointed by themselves. But it is not that I am a part of the board of governors and I extend my own term. No. The board of governors will appoint a highly committed, accomplished scholars or committee of scholars, group of scholars, who will identify new members, who will who will who will tell us who are the members whom we need, whom we cannot dispense with, who should continue and who should be rotated. So a newly appointed committee will identify the new members, and the, the committee will be appointed by the Board of Governors. So there is no question of, I mean, if it is adhered properly, there is no question of any external interference. And as Professor Saikia has mentioned in the previous lecture, that there are equity considerations, that that such appointment of board of members should have the equity considerations. Whenever the new members are appointed, they must represent, or they must exhibit diversity of ethnicity, gender, caste, religion, etc., and in terms of marginalized community. So, the policy envisions that for coming 15 years, higher education institutions will be incentivized, they will be supported, and they will be mentored during this process till 2035, so that they are able to attain the precondition that is a sufficiently acclaimed graded accreditation and a well-established graded autonomy, so that they are able to reproduce this culture of excellence and innovation in their future. Now, this the board of governor appoints, or will appoint the vice chancellors, or the CEOs, or the so-called the top brass administrator. But at the same time, the board of governors shall maintain transparency in appointing the vice, and transparent self-disclosures, so that the board of governors can function under the overall supervision of National Higher Education Regulation Council. And this National Higher Education Regulation Council, regulatory, is going to be coordinating, supervising, and enabling these board of governors if there is a need. Now, when you say that board of governors should be very, very transparent in terms of their appointment of the vice chancellor, what are the qualities of the academic leaders? What are the qualities? And each quality is something which you must ponder over, which you must reflect upon, and which you must examine in relation to your profession. A person should be able to handle complex academic situations. Complex academic situation. Many times, the government will ask that, suppose a person has been selected in biotechnology, and the person will the government will ask, because somebody has complained, that whether he has the needed specialization in the core discipline. And the core discipline is zoology or botany. But long ago, the scholar has moved biotechnology and has proven ability of world-class research. But the government is asking a question which is highly bureaucratic, clerical, or highly technical. But here there is a substantive academic question involved. And if you say, as a head of the institution, or as the academic leader, if you say the person doesn't have simply yes or no, then the person loses the job or loses the case. So the complexity of the situation beyond the categorization, or several many such other examples of handling complexity is something which the vice chancellor or the academic leader should do. The person should reflect commitment to the constitutional values and a strong social commitment to marginal communities, to the downtrodden, or to the underprivileged group. In addition to having strong social commitment, the person should be able to work in a team. And you are able to work in a team only when you are able to listen to others' ideas. But if you all the time think that you are the boss and others should listen to you, then you are not a team person. And therefore, you must believe in the pluralism of culture, pluralism of faculty, pluralism of disciplines and confluence of different disciplines. So pluralism and pluralistic diversity, or pluralism and pluralistic tendencies are accommodated. Positive outlook and ability to work with diverse people. A good vice chancellor is one who never says no to any academic work, primarily because leadership is all about letting thousand flowers bloom. I mean, it is not that you are the only leader and then others are timid and others are not capable of demonstrating their strength. Now, if there are more leaders within your university, the more glamour and the more glory would come to you. So ability to work with diverse people and leadership is all about letting thousand flower bloom. When we talk about these kind of these kind of qualities of the academic leader, the the academic leader is also expected to do few more things. And what are those things a leader is expected? Number one, university doesn't exist in vacuum. University exists in a real society, in a real city, in a real time, in a real space. And therefore, the local community is very, very significant. Local community, because university itself is a community, but it is a community which has strong connection with the locality, with the local community. It may be, it is also connected to the world. It, it may have regular visitors, but at the same time, it cannot function well if it remains insulated from the local community. And therefore, engagement with local community is one of the requirement of the leaders, or one of the requirement of academic leadership. And and this engagement with local community, along with internationalization of the higher education institution through collaboration, through institutionalization of international travel, and through incentivization to the faculty about international publications, is something which should be the concern of the leader. In addition to these internationalization and engagement with local community, the leader should also ensure that there is a green campus and it is a safe campus, it is a gender neutral campus, and it is a gender sensitive campus, and at the same time engagement with greenery, with nature, with water harvesting systems, with solar lights, consumable or renewable energy system. It should also have strong connection with the alumni. But a strong connection with the alumni could be developed only when you have treated the students as person, not as roll numbers, or not as category. If you have kept in your mind the names, the codes, the personality of the student, the limitation of the student, and the strength of the student, and his or her inclination towards a particular political ideology or particular revolutionary or particular school of thought, if you know, and if you connect with the person, not as a just a category or as a unidentifiable roll number, then when you expect people to do something for the institution, when they become alumni, it is very very fruitful, and it is uh, very satisfying. And finally, the most important thing, or before we move to the fourth section, I would like to say that leadership is a continuous phenomenon. Persons may come and persons may go, but but the vice chancellor or the office of vice chancellor and the role of the vice chancellor is discharged by one or other person. And when you say that persons change but the leadership role continues, the new policy also talks about this, that there we must ensure the continuity of good practices is envisaged by the leader. Continuity of the good practices with even with the change of leaders. And with the change of leadership, if we ensure the continuity of good practices, there has to be a situation where the outgoing leadership and the incoming leadership should have a meeting. And this meeting ground is possible only when there is a sufficient amount of overlap in terms of time. And this sufficient overlap over time ensures smooth transition. I do not know how they are going to do it in future, but this is at least in terms of a in terms of a idea, in terms of a thought. This is very very wonderful. I mean, that is how in many of the Rotary clubs or Lions clubs, that there is always a president elect. I mean, if you are functioning as a president, there is a president elect who waits for 6 months or 1 year till the time he assumes the office. So there has to be adequate thought given to this, and maybe an overlapping period of at least 1 or 2 months is essential, which should be treated as a period of smooth transition from one to another, from one leadership to another. And at the same time, this transition is possible when we identify outstanding leaders at different levels of academic maturity. This is possible. This overlapping is possible when we identify outstanding leaders at different levels of academic maturity, so as to put them at ladder of leadership. Leadership position is highly structured. There are different leaders levels, like somebody has to work as dean academics, somebody has to work as the dean colleges, or somebody has to work as the pro vice chancellor, or somebody has to work as XYZ before becoming the top position, because in that case, the person has seen, in that case, the person has seen how other leaders have functioned or have have delivered best from that leadership position, and therefore much of the learning to the highest leadership position is carried out through the through a very tacit way of learning. That is a very very intuitive way of learning, because the person when the person is kept in different ladders of leadership position, he learns from his superior or his superordinate, and a much of training, intuitive training, much of tacit knowledge, untold training or happens, and that is something which is a very very important component of the new education policy. And the last point of part three is the leader, academic leader, is expected to continue to the academic leader is expected to talk about a strategic institutional development plan, a strategic institutional development plan how the institution or how the university will look after 20 years. Now they are talking about this strategic institutional plan will be for 15 years. But, but this is one of the major questions which most of us face, whether at a leadership position or whether at the leadership position of the university or at the leadership position of that, that if I ask you to whatever department you may belong, if I ask you a simple question that in what way your department is different from other departments of the same discipline, other departments from other universities. Suppose you are from political science, suppose you are from physics, or suppose you are from, let's say, chemistry. Now, how your department, or let's say economics, how your department is different from other economics departments of other universities? This is a question which cannot be answered so easily because it takes years, decades to answer this question. But this is essential. Every institution during its lifetime will face this question that what is the USP, unique selling point of your institution? And that is something which the academic leaders or academic leadership searches in terms of strategic institutional development plan. And it is through the strategic institutional development plan that an identity is acquired, identity is established. That is the identity of the institution. And, and that is not possible overnight. It requires, it's almost very close to, in social sciences, it is almost very close to telling that a particular kind of school of thought. I mean, is there a school? I mean, is there a, let's say, Lucknow school of sociology, or is there a Lucknow school of anthropology, or is there a Ranchi school of, let us say, political political science? I mean, there are different questions. So now the fourth part, when we talk about that, how it comes to, I'll give you 2 3 examples. Number one, that that when I was in a state university, that is the Utkal University, and this state university is, or this Utkal University has been a very premier university. It has, I mean, it is the best university of Odisha. It has produced, high court judges, Supreme Court judges. It has produced IAS officers, chief secretaries. It has produced lieutenant generals, or even generals, admirals, and it has also produced professor of various ranks, status, and accomplished social workers, accomplished musicians. So I will tell you 3 things. Number one, how I encountered a violent campus. Number two, how I handled the local interference. And third, how I won over the confidence of the state. I will just tell you 3 incidents to make you realize that how important it is to, to understand the local dynamic. Now, when I went there, it was in 2007. Within 2 months, I realized that there are local elements who are very strongly entrenched into the campus life. Those who have nothing to do with academics, but they are very strongly entrenched into the campus life, and they control the local elections on the campus, and they control different kinds of tenders and other kinds of processes. When I realized that the students' election is not being held very, very smoothly, and my faculty members are under the influence or under the they are intimidated because they live there, their children live there, and I can understand their helplessness because the campus has always been a violent campus. For no reason or rhyme, there would be physical violence, there would be fire, there would be road blockade, and many times people have lost their arms. Arms means the limbs and others. It's a very, very violent. It was a violent. When I realized that in the first 2 months of my tenure, when I realized the campus it was not possible to conduct the election, students' union election, in a free and fair manner. I was in dilemma what to do. And if I go ahead with the election, then I know that we are not maintaining the fairness. My dilemma did not bother me much because before I was able to decide anything, there was bomb blast within the campus and near ladies' hostel and other places. And there was also violence which erupted within the boys' hostel, outside the ladies' hostel, and physical violence within the boys' hostel. Knowing this, I consulted my colleagues, consulted police, and then without any delay, we cancelled the election and we declared the university signed die. And that was a very, very bold step in the local context. Everybody was telling me when I went there, everybody was telling me that, look, sir, if you are able to conduct the election smoothly, then everything will. But I realized I was not in a position to conduct it. So therefore, I stopped it. Of course, I was personally not convinced that we should stop it. But there was no other way out. So when we stopped it, I declared the university signed die. That was 5 days before Durga Puja, Dasera. And the Durga Puja holiday was another 15 days. So we did not lose much of the much of the classes or academic time, curriculum time. After 20 days, we reopened the university. And when we reopened, on the day of reopening, nearly 120 students came around me, broke my office, broke the glasses, and virtually intimidated me to the extent that they can cause any harm. And they said that, how dare you stop the student election? We have been conducting elections in this type every year for last few years, many years. You have no right. After they went back, after negotiations and discussions from whole day from 11 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock, when they went back, I called my colleague after 8. I said, look, I have completed 2 months. Most of the decisions I have taken talking to you people. But now I have taken a decision without consulting you. Tomorrow, the Vice Chancellor will be on fast in front of his own office. And this will be silent fasting to introspect where there is some element of violence in us. And I would like all of us to be together and participate. We will do fasting while on work. We will keep signing all the files. You keep going to the class. Let us not disturb the university activity, but we will demonstrate in terms of demonstrate to the outer world that we don't like this kind of behavior of select group of students. Next day morning, I requested some of my faculty members to create a poster, handwritten poster, which says that shun violence, bring academics back to the campus. 14 hours fasting by the Vice Chancellor and the faculty members, and only claim was shun violence and bring academics back to the campus. And you won't imagine when I sat in front of my own office, next, just a few feet away, in the veranda and other places, it 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 was covered by all newspapers in terms of the headline, and I got calls from my bosses, and I said that the university is functioning well. Well means university is I mean, there is no obstruction to the university activity. We are all doing our work, but we are fasting. This fasting acted as a moral weapon. This is the kind of thing which Gandhi taught us long ago. That when 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 you are you should never feel powerless. And that acted when the local rowdy elements, when they came, they saw that there is a picture of Gandhi, and the only claim is shun violence and bring academics back to the campus. We are not blaming any political party. We are not blaming any political section. So all the political party student leaders, they came and they started sitting there. And after 14 hours, they offered fruit juice to me, to everybody. The situation changed like anything. And 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 after that, there was a complete change of the campus politics that 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 we could see. Now, seeing this, after a few days, some of the students started they started saying that we have learned this method of fasting. So 5, 6 students continued to fast. That one or two other demand. And then what I did, that every day evening I would go. I never blocked the communication. Every day evening I would go sit with them, and I would say that I cannot do out of these demands. I cannot fulfill. I can extend my personal touch, my empathy, that you are sitting on a difficult terrain, and that also worked. So what I'm trying to say, the conclusion of this part is that university is not like a regimented organization. University is part family. University is part government. There are rules which I cannot violate, or the head of the institution, the head of the university cannot violate. But there are also areas where the academic leader can counsel students. And that is how things will work out. And the conclusion to this part is, in a university setup, there are different cosmologies. There are different cosmologies in the sense contested world. And as the mukhia, or as the top person of all these contested cosmologies, you must own up, because every contested cosmology has one or other substance. They are not completely irrational. They are not completely unsubstantial. There is one or two substantial point involved in this. And if, as a leader of the university, if you are able to understand what is substantial that one particular cosmology contains, then you are a good leader. So leadership is all about understanding contested cosmologies that are there, that are contained in a given institutional framework. Now, the last point with which I would like to conclude my talk. Many times, these administrators, they are they understand us better, because all through their life they deal with human beings. When I joined, there was another controversy. The controversy of a newly created women's university was given land from our own university. I was the VC of the Utkal University, and a government circular came that 20 acres of the land will be given to this newly created women university. And this newly created women university was given land elsewhere, but they denied that we will not go there. So the government officers, they called me, they said, Professor Patnaik, this is a very sensitive issue. We have given you 60 acres of land in a new campus. Actually, they gave me. Or they gave the university 60 acres of land in a new campus. But that 60 acres of land, for that new campus, you have to travel 65 kilometers. And adjacent to that, they had given the land to the women's university also. They did not go in the name of women students cannot travel. So it came on me. And this university, Utkal University, is 75-year-old university. And everybody became so sensitive. Everybody became so sensitive that this if this vice chancellor allows the transfer of this land, it would be suicidal for the university. Now, I don't know why there was an expectation from the influential section that I would allow this kind of transition, because some people expected or some people calculated that I don't belong to the university, I belong to Delhi University. And this voice came to me also. Somebody said कि sir, आप तो दिल्ली से हैं, आपको लेना देना क्या है? 20 एकड़ सरकार मांग रही है, एक यूनिवर्सिटी से दूसरी यूनिवर्सिटी को दे दीजिए. And this matter came to the Honorable Chancellor's notice. And Honorable Chancellor was taking a feedback from government officers, from university vice chancellors. And when my turn came, the government officers had earlier indicated that we have informed the vice chancellor of Utkal that 20 acres of land has to be given from here to there. And I said, because it's a very difficult dilemma to say no, because land belongs to government and government is giving from one community to another community. But my commitment is to the institution which I'm leading. My commitment is not to any other institution at that point of time, because I'm owning it up. My ownership is the interest of Utkal University. And there was one senior professor of political science. He advised me something. And I followed his words. What was the words? In front of the Honorable Chancellor, in front of the whole meeting, I said, His Excellency, in this situation, I am reminded of Winston Churchill statement during Churchill statement when the India's independence bill was placed in the parliament. And Churchill said something which I would like to quote here, that, and this is actually a historical fact, Churchill said, I'm not Her Majesty to take a decision on the liquidation of British Empire. Now, if there has to be a decision on the liquidation of the British Empire, it is the Her Majesty should take, and not Winston Churchill. Indirectly conveying that if there is to be any transfer of the land, you do it, but not through me. And that was something which has given me given me great credibility among the stakeholders of Utkal University, that at least he could protect the university's interest, and later on that decision was dropped. We were able to convince the government that it is a very sensitive issue and Utkal is facing highly or is highly constrained for the land and all. Therefore, let us not talk about that kind of transfer. And that has created a great sense of credibility among the stakeholders. And the last point, we have to learn from everybody. And one of the chief secretaries of Odisha, who happened to be, I can name him also, who happened to be the son of the first vice chancellor of Utkal University. The first vice chancellor of Utkal University was Professor Pranakrishna Parija, the giant in botany. I mean, he was a very famous botanist in his own field. And this gentleman, Lalatendu Parija, L.I. Parija, he retired as a chief secretary of Utkal. When I joined the university as the vice chancellor, he told me one thing. He said, "Look, Soumendra, you cannot do everything for everybody, but people will expect you to do everything for everybody. Everybody will expect that you should do something for them. Be very discreet and tell them what can be done and what cannot be done. And even after you saying what can be done, if you cannot do it, and if you have tried, the other person will understand. The stakeholders will understand that here is a leader who tried but could not succeed. And you try genuinely. You try genuinely to help him when you know that the law is in your favor and this is possible. You try genuinely. But whether you are able to do it or not, it is not in your hand. And this I have learned from my administrative experience, and that proved magic in my case. That many times the student, the faculty member would come back and say that, "Sir, at least you tried and you have given your best to solve my issue. But if it is not being solved, then what can you do?" So what is more important? I would like to conclude by this last point is that that when you are at the leadership position, or when you are at the top level of university administration, then you have to be above the narrow parochial and petty considerations. And these narrow parochial and petty considerations will create a trap for you, and that is why you need to be very, very open, broad-minded, and you should be able to see how things will work out for the future. Much before this 2020 national education policy came in 2018, in Utkal University, we had started an international office, internationalization of campus. And we had also started a Center for Liberal Arts. So what is quite satisfying for us at the end of the day is that if you can think ahead of your time, and if you can think collectively with the rest of the stakeholders, things are not going to be kept in cold storage. They will materialize very soon. Thank you very much.
Okay, Soumendra, thank you very much for a very interesting and insightful talk, rich in experiences. Thanks very much. Participants here, you can unmute yourself, or if you have any problems with your audio, you could put it in the chat box as well. But please do participate. You have been unusually quiet today.
I must say here that maybe the participants are feeling that this is too distant for them, but never feel that way. In academics, we believe in the flow. What we are facing today, or what we have handled today, or in the past 1 or 2 years, or what Professor Saikia has handled, a day will come when you will handle it. And then you may remember us, but we may not be there. Thank you for sharing. Good to hear from you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Somebody is asking, how's your experience in recruitment?
Oh, yes, I will just tell you. Wonderful. Surendra, Dr. Surendra Pratap. Now, when I was there in Utkal University got NAC A+. And because of a sufficiently credible grading, we were able to compete with the next round of funding. Many universities applied, A+ universities. I think nearly 20 or so applied. And out of that 20, 10 were given 100 crores each. And when they gave 100 crores each, we used to have meetings here with the Secretary Education in Delhi, India International Center, and other places. So on one of the occasions, the Secretary Education, I respect him, he said, Professor Patnaik, you are from Delhi. Why don't you build up Utkal to a world-class university and take more people from here, Delhi and JNU and all? Okay. I said, sir, who will go to Utkal? A bright mind would prefer JNU, Delhi, or Hyderabad, or let us say IIT, Indian Institute of Science. Why somebody or other will go to Utkal? Then he said, do you mean to say that it cannot be done? I said, it can be done, but you give them good pay package. You can give them good incentive. So we decided to recruit. We decided to recruit postdoctoral fellows. And postdoctoral fellows, 27 postdoctoral fellows. He said, give us a proposal. And I give a proposal that following, this Ramana Fellowship or Kothari Fellowship, they should be given 1 lakh per month. A person who has completed completed PhD in last 3 years, within last 3 years, can apply and have a stint of another 3 years. But every year it will be reviewed. Will get 1 lakh rupee per month. Will get housing free, and will also get 50,000 as contingency per annum. And this became a big hit, and we got so many applications. And finally we selected the postdoctoral fellows. We selected 26. We could not select 26. And out of 26, look at the breakup. Breakup is, out of these 26, 7 scholars have done PhD from abroad. Somebody has done it from Liverpool, somebody did it from Hong Kong, somebody did it from Edinburgh, Australia, from other places, Belgium, very, very interesting places. 7 people did PhD from abroad. 2 of them were from Indian Institute of Science. Imagine, the best institute in the country, Indian Institute of Science, 2 people had done PhD from there, and they are joining Utkal. 6 of them have done PhD from IITs. And how many? 7, 6, 13, 2, 15, and rest 11. Out of rest 11, 2 of them were from JNU, 2 from Delhi. And rest 6 or rest 7, they did it from Pondicherry, Hyderabad, NITs, and others. And the breakup point which I calculated was that if they were from good institutes, the male-female breakup, and the State University of Odisha, so Odia should be given the right share. So out of 26 Odia scholars from these good universities, they were 14, and outside scholars they were 13. Sorry, they were 12. Women 13 and men 13. From physics, from chemistry, from different things. And after that, the university's ecosystem, the research ecosystem has changed, and good publications are coming out. So, but that is to be the recruitment. I'm pretty sure that these 27 people or 26 people whom we have selected, also interesting to know, local lobby never wanted that bright people should come. And when local lobby never wanted that these bright people should come, they instituted an inquiry that why the Vice Chancellor is recruiting when his tenure is coming to an end, just before 2 months. They constituted an inquiry committee, and I supplied all informations. And when I supplied all informations, they constituted another committee. The committee looked at all the informations again. And just before 10 days of my, or just 7 days before my tenure ends, everything became clear that the university has followed all procedures in selecting these people. And I tell you, I had kept world-class selectors like the former vice chancellor of JNU, former vice chancellor of Delhi University, and IIT professors and XYZ. I've kept impeccable selection committee. And as a vice chancellor, I have never interfered in their judgment because I know that they are fair. So when everything was clear, the government cleared the thing, and it was just 1 week to go. Even the letter never came to me. Letter came only on Monday or Monday evening. And I was to leave on Thursday. No, I'm mixing. The letter came on Wednesday, and I was to leave on Monday. So Wednesday, the letter came. I called my private secretary and I called my, when you are going out, generally people don't pay that attention to you. There was also resistance from within the university that they were reluctant to send the letter. I had to threaten the subordinates. If you don't do it, you lose your job. And believe me, we issued the letters to 26 PDFs on Thursday, so that it was dispatched on Thursday. Friday was the only day in between, and Monday I returned. And that is so fulfilling to know that just before 3 days, I executed, and this is the budgetary requirement is 12 crore, 26 people. The budgetary requirement was 12 crore. The 12 crore rupees was utilized properly by 26 research scholars whom I had never met in my life. And I don't know whether I'll meet in future. So my experience with the recruitment has been, of course, with this PDF. And before that, I could do a small recruitment. That was also, there was no interference from the government. And we did it well. That was long ago, immediately after my joining. But this was just before I was. So I'm very satisfied that I could do this much for my home state. There are some questions in the chat box. Let me quickly pay attention. Archana has said just a comment. Then Anita has just said yes. Ganesh, but it goes so long. All right, the questions. In colleges, there is a disparity in the effort put forth by faculty members, with some working while others engage in leisure activities. No comment on this. No comment. Ganesh, no comment on this. We know that is true, but what can I say? Yes, the situation in most of the state universities is very different. And if this is the case, then how the universities can work to accomplish the objectives of this is actually the challenge. This is no doubt definitely a challenge. But this is an interesting question, Varak. Now, Varak, most of the time our senior faculties maintain the ideology. Forget about the ideological loyalty, but senior faculties, generally they acquire some kind of inertia. And they are isolated from academic campuses. This was also an important challenge which I faced. When I found out that the senior faculty would always create the connecting link with the junior faculty. Because junior faculty will not be forthcoming. Junior faculty would be hesitant. And junior faculty, they are, what should I say? They are shy, or they are conscious of meeting the top leadership. But I have tried to break this boundary, and I have given, or I have empowered the younger faculties by giving them more role. But I have not ignored the senior faculties also. But if there is a seminar, if there is a campus run, marathon run, and other things, I have always encouraged the younger people for creating semi-culture and all. So, so this is something which is definitely a challenge that many times the senior faculty also don't like that the youngers or the youngsters are given more attention. Or but youngsters, they contain the energy, and if you give them the task with little direction and little guidance, they come out better results. See, private universities, Saikat said, the private universities are they believe, or they run in a very, what should I say, different ecosystem. You know, many of the private universities are very good, but many of them are just like uh, one man organization. So, so I don't know how to answer this question, but it's very pathetic that some of the private universities, they retrench the teachers without any notice and just for a no reason or rhyme. So the private universities, or the founders of the private, this is what Professor Saikia was talking in the slide, that how to avoid commercialization of education, and how to look at this entrepreneurship education more meaningfully. So this problem is definitely there. Colleges have faced many accreditation links. I totally agree with him that that we are, and Dr. Anil is saying that much of our time as a faculty member goes in documentation, you know, proof and everything. And as a result, we come, I mean, I don't want to name, but as a result, we come across very, very ordinary universities getting very high degrees and very, very glamorous grades. So uh, it is important to know how these statistics work. And most of the private universities, and the CEO of the private universities, the vice chancellor of the private universities, they are busy in accumulating the scores, while the public universities are busy in shaping the student's mind. And that is something which is a very, very important, important concern. I totally agree with it.
I have one question to you. At the present situation in our country, just like MIT University, BITS Pilani, Ashoka University, this type of so many private university now are coming. Why is there any deficiency in government university like state or central university or IIT? What is your opinion about this growing the private university?
I think I think I started with my lecture that how the university culture is. I mean, my supervisor made me write my dissertation at least 4 times. I remember some of the chapters I wrote for 5 times, and maybe that has helped. And why maybe? Yes, that has helped me in bringing out the rigor. But if you start doing the same thing with your research scholars now, you look at the fate and the outcome of this. People are not going to take it very healthy. They would say, Here is a teacher who doesn't say all advice in one go. Every time he changes his opinion and revises the thesis. So the student-teacher interaction is also changing. And when the student-teacher interaction is changing, it's primarily because at many places, the so-called culture of excellence is questioned. Culture of excellence is challenged or is lacking. And when the culture of excellence is lacking, the private universities, not all, but many of the private universities also lack the culture of excellence. But some of the private universities, they have got hold of the good minds, and they know that it would be a selling point for them. Like if you look into some of the good private universities, they have hired all those people who have earned a degree from abroad. So this should have been, or this is being treated as a product for them, because they are sitting in the market and they must sell it, and they must show to the world that they are different. So the private universities are driven by the profit motive, and they have a particular class to attract, and therefore they have designed it in that way. The product designation or the product development is in that way. But other private universities, they address to another class, lesser rich class. So when they address to the lesser rich class, they have developed product in that way. So, so education, unfortunately, has become a marketable commodity, and maybe in such private universities they learn what should they learn? They may learn the world class, or they may develop world class understanding of a discipline. But I'm sure they will not develop acquisition of world class value, because any relationship which is based on market relationship have a different flavor in comparison to a relationship which is market free. It is only in the public universities the relationship between student and teacher is not dependent on a market culture or on a market drive, but it is free from those drives. I remember when this Delhi School of Economics building was inaugurated. I mean, this is a folklore. I remember when this Delhi School of Economics building was inaugurated, V.K.R.V. Rao was the Vice Chancellor. And it was inaugurated by Prime Minister Nehru and the Vice President, Papali Radhakrishnan. Both of them were present. So the building which is in front of the college, I mean the backside of Delhi School, Pandit Nehru asked and complimented V.K.R.V. Rao. Oh, Professor Rao, what a majestic building you have created. Sarvapalli quit from the backdrop. Sarvapalli intervened and said that best universities are not housed in good buildings. They are based on the quality of student and teacher relationship. So the student-teacher relationship is crucial. The difference between student and teacher relationship is crucial in in state universities and private. So, but that is something which is the domain of market, and here it is more in the domain of humanism or altruism.
Somin, if I may add to your answer,
Yes.
that if you look at the number of students which are enrolled in higher education in just a conventional mode, I'm not counting distance mode, that the numbers have gone up tremendously. from about, say, 9 million in 2002, 2003, to about 30 million in 2012-13. And the last ISHA report, Survey of Higher Education in 2022-21, that was 41.3 million. So the thing is that, the middle class or the lower middle class, or people have seen education as a way of social and economic mobility. And so the numbers of students who are wanting to, get into higher education, although the rates of unemployment is still large of graduates and postgraduates, the numbers seeking education have gone up tremendously. And government expenditure on public education has not gone up at the same rate, or not gone up significantly. I mean, even the NEP just talks about 6% of the GDP, although it wants 50% GER by 2035. And that is going to put in the private players in a big way, actually, independent of
True.
anything else,
Very true. So the larger market force is operating in terms of investment and enrollment and aspirations.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Patnaik, and thanks very much to all of you for participating with all the interesting points that you've raised.